Hello everyone, Memory here. This is part 2 of the Witch PvP guide, where I talk about the skill add-ons, skill choices, and stuff like that. If you are new to Witch PvP, you should watch part 1 of this video, link in the description, so some of these things would make more sense to you. And remember, this is based on my own playstyle and situations, so just take what makes sense for you from the guide. You don't have to fully copy this to be successful. Anyways, let's start with the skills. I've included a link in the description on my current skill build for a quick reference. And I will only be talking about the more important part of the skill build because explaining everything in details takes too long and is unnecessary. You can probably figure most of them out by just grinding with them. But if you do have more questions, leave a comment down below and I'll try to explain them if I know the answers. So, when you just finish your Awakening questline, the only two damaging skills you want to keep in the pre-Awakening tree would be Meteor and Blizzard. Rip out all other damaging skills on the pre-Awakening tree and max out all the Awakening skills that are available to you. The Black Spirit should give you a free skill reset after you've completed the Awakening quests. You can get Detonative Flow and Fissure Wave first because they are spammable skills, which is a bit more newbie friendly to grind with compared to other skills. And after that, max Voltaic Pulse and Thunderstorm since they are your bread and butter skills as a witch. For passives, max out all of them, no question asked. I personally prioritized them over anything else while I was leveling, even over the damaging skills, and I didn't really find any real issues. For the secondary skills and the buff skills, you want your teleport and speed spell as high as possible whenever you can, since they are useful at all situations. And then max out the heals. Not only these heals are super important for PvP, it also eliminates your need to use pots while grinding, especially when you get Sage's Light in the skill enhancement page, which does require you to have Sage's memory, so get that as well. Other than these, you don't really need anything else in the pre-Awakening tree before you are geared enough for PvP. So from this point onwards, just focus on getting everything in the Awakening tree. After you do have everything in the Awakening tree, come back and grab the Protected Area first because it is an important skill for group PvP. And then maybe Magic Shield. Magic Shield gives you 15% to all resistance and convert 25% of the incoming damage into mana, which will make you fairly tanky while you do have mana. However, since Witch is already a mana heavy user, spending mana to absorb damage will sometimes deplete your mana completely before you die. In that case, the extra life you have left is meaningless because you don't have mana to do anything useful. We can't use Mana Drain to solve the problem in PvP since it is not protected and it has a long cast animation. So most of the time you're relying on your heals, mana recovery on some of your skill on hits, and mana pots for your mana sustain. You can also use your Q block to recover your mana when you successfully block damage with it. With that said, if you don't like to deal with the mana issue, you don't have to get Magic Shield. It won't destroy your character or anything like that. But I personally recommend this skill because it does provide you with about an extra 1000 life worth of damage cushion on average, which is quite significant. After that, you want to get the Earthquake, Frigid Fog, and Chain Lightning in that order. You want Earthquake first because you can also get Swift Earthquake for your skill enhancement, which is another super armor skill. Getting Frigid Fog next is so that you can complete the super armor rotation mentioned in the first video. And then finally, maxing Chain Lightning if you do have the extra points, because it will increase the number of chain targets from 3 at level 1 to 10 when you get the absolute version. After that, it's your choice on whether if you want to grab Spellbound Hearts and Magic Lighthouse. Spellbound Hearts gives you some minor mana regen and 10% movement speed for 10 minutes. You won't really feel the mana regen most of the time because the regen pulse is very slow, the regen amount per pulse is laughable, and you do have to be around the blue ball to receive the regen when it pulsates. This ball usually lags behind a lot when you move around, so half of the time you won't even get the regen anyways. I personally use it purely for the movement speed buff, but it's not super important to have. Magic Lighthouse has more uses in PvE since it can take monster aggro for you. It does have DP reduction debuff, but there's no real good situations to use this skill in PvP. So you don't have to get this one if you are not grinding or you are short on the skill points. Moving on, let's have a look at the skill add-ons. I have Meteor Shower and Blizzard for the pre-awakening skills because they are signature skills for mages as they are S tier skills when it comes to any sort of group PvP. I've got 150 bleed damage on Meteor because pairing that with the inbuilt 60 burn damage, we can achieve 210 damage over time per 3 seconds for 15 seconds. Our extra large HP pot heals for 275 HP per 2 seconds. After some boring math, the HP pot recovers an average of 412 HP per 3 seconds if we keep spamming it. As you can see on the screen, you can pretty much view this as halving the amount of potion recovery for the enemy. And if they don't have HP pots, well, they're just gonna receive an extra 1000 damage over the next 15 seconds on top of your already high meteor damage. And to boost your meteor damage even more, I put the PvP damage add-on as my second choice. As for Blizzard, putting damage buff on it is not effective because the damage is shared between all targets hit by the Blizzard. Therefore, I put movement speed and attack speed reduction debuff on top of the existing Blizzard slow. This will make your Blizzard very impactful in group PvP even if you are under-geared. The remaining 4 add-ons I use are on awakening skills. First one is Voltaic Pulse because this is going to be your most used skill in PvP. I've put evasion debuff and accuracy buff on it because I found myself versing evasion heavy builds in many occasions. Now with the inbuilt evasion debuff that's already on the skill itself, which does stack with the add-on version of the evasion debuff by the way, plus the accuracy buff as the second skill add-on choice, this skill can hit through the evasions for a lot of evasion heavy builds. Why is accuracy important, you might ask? Well, because currently in Black Desert, as the average kill score of the people you are fighting with goes up, evasion heavy builds will become more and more prevalent in this game. This is because currently evasion scales a lot better late game in general. Therefore, usually the people who are doing PvP side of the content will more or less aiming to build evasion. Next, we have Thunderstorm. In many situations, Thunderstorm is comboed right after Voltaic Pulse, so it is also a high use skill. And therefore, this is where we put our main damaging buffs. PvP damage and crit rate. I put crit rate here because a lot of the time I only have level 2 crit rate from food buff. If your character somehow has level 5 crit rate with food buff, you should use crit damage here instead. Next, Yoke of Ordeal. I put cast speed here because this skill has the longest cast time out of all the awakening skills, so this is where you need the cast speed the most. The down smash add-on is a fun one. It has a 20% chance of applying down smash on target. Down smash is something that will extend the CC time if the target is already on the ground. Now, the actual chance of this add-on happening when used on Yoke of Ordeal is actually higher than 20% because the skill can be repeated again by holding down the right mouse button. So the actual chance of down smash happening is around 36%. So 1 in 3 skills used. And I think this is good enough of a reason for me to pick this skill add-on. And finally, I choose Lightning Blast as my final skill for skill add-on, because I use this skill quite frequently compared to the rest of the skill that doesn't have add-ons yet. I put both AP and DP debuff on it simply because half of the time I play more like a support than a damage dealer. Having debuff instead of buffs is beneficial for being both a damage dealer and a support. I tested it out with many different combinations and this felt the best for me, so this is what I ended up with. And this kinda ties in with the core skills because depending on your playstyle, you might wanna swap Yoke of Ordeal or Lightning Blast add-ons to whichever core skill you choose. So let's start with core Fissure Wave. It adds frontal guard to Fissure Wave and that's it. But this is probably the most newbie friendly core skill on Witch because Fissure Wave only has 3-second cooldown, which means it will become a spammable frontal guard if you pick this core skill. And therefore it becomes a viable skill to use in PvP, because now it has protection. This also means using add-ons for this skill will become a good idea, since you can spam the skill and make use of the add-ons very often. I've been using this one for a while when the core skill is first introduced, and it drastically increased my room for error by having an extra spammable frontal guard. However, to make the best use of this core skill, you cannot take the flow skill for Fissure Wave, because the flow part of the skill won't have the frontal guard. Therefore, it will leave a big gap in your protection rotation. And also, even if you don't have the flow skill, the frontal guard still ends about 0.1 second earlier than the actual skill animation. So there is still a tiny gap without protection even if you take off the flow skill. This is the reason why I said you can be 99% protected and not 100% in the first video. So later on, I decided to try out Detonative Flow as my core skill. It adds block when the skill is not on cooldown. This basically enables you to use Detonative Flow to swap weapon while being protected. That's about it, but I ended up picking this one because I do find myself swapping weapons by using Detonative Flow a lot, and I do find myself getting CC'd while doing so. Also, the protection rotation I'm able to pull off with this core skill is already more than enough. Trading a flow skill for even more protection time at this point just doesn't seem to be worth it. Next one, we have Core Equilibrium Break. It adds stiffness on the first part of the skill and bound on the second part of the skill, basically turning the skill into a CC machine. However, I don't recommend this one because the next core skill, Thunderstorm, is better than this one in every way. Thunderstorm core skill adds a stun into the skill. Both Equilibrium Break and Thunderstorm core skill achieve the same goal, giving you an extra protected crowd control skill. However, because Thunderstorm has a bigger area, it does more damage, and it is a super armor which is better than the block on Equilibrium Break, so Thunderstorm is a better choice overall. The only thing that Equilibrium Break is better at is it has shorter cooldown, so you can make use of the core skill more often. Of course, it comes down to playstyle here. If you are using Equilibrium Break a lot, then it can be a better choice out of the two. In summary, my suggestion is, if you want an extra protected skill, pick Detonative Flow. And if you want an extra protected crowd control skill, choose Thunderstorm as your core skill. And that's it for today. Subscribe if it helped, hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.